the learning that happens not just by lectures. It also happens through insightful interactions, and I'm sure we'll have those interactions and we will utilize our time with our colleagues and our guest faculty. We'll start this session with very important topic, that is science, ethics and regulation. Is it just important to publish a paper? It's only publication and increasing our H index is important. Is scientific paper an opportunity, privilege or a responsibility? There are very fundamental aspects when we start our journey as a researcher. And today we have Professor Subhash Chandra Lakhotia to discuss very fundamental aspects with us. Dr. Lakhotia, as he introduced himself, is a distinguished professor of zoology, and he has elected as a fellow in all scientific academic associations of India, and he has pioneered fundamental work in Ayurvedic biology program, and he will be discussing through many roles as a researcher, as teacher, an editor, and even a person who influences policy. I request sir to start this session. Thank you.
Maybe I don't need this. I'm without PowerPoint, but I hope not without point. To begin with, I must congratulate and appreciate the efforts of Pune University and Professor Patwardhan in making this arrangement and for starting this discussion about ethics in publications, ethics in science and so on, and this is very important. Now, first of all, let me say what we mean by science. What is science? Why are we doing what we say is science? Science is nothing but a way of human behavior that we are curious. Every living organism is curious. Every living organism. Let's not think that only human beings are curious. Even a bacteria and a virus is curious, and they have their own sensitivity so that they can recognize their appropriate target and respond accordingly. But human curiosity goes beyond just that level, and that's partly because we evolved what we call language, spoken and written language, because of which the knowledge that one person gets can be transmitted across generations, even thousands, like Charak Samhita. Maybe several thousand years, we still have that knowledge, and this is where it becomes an important point that we become scientists or researchers or something, because individually we are curious, but then what we learn out of that curiosity, what we process that out of that curiosity, becomes available to everyone around. Now, why should it be made to everyone around? Again, two different aspects. One is individual ego. I discovered this, and I should let everybody know that I discovered this. Self-satisfaction, but there's a philanthropy also in this. That what I have discovered, I can share with others, and so that they can build upon that. See, everybody need not start from base. When we have publication or we have research, we have done it, we have shared it. What we have helped is, we have improved the cumulative knowledge that becomes available, so that the next person who starts with that moves from that step. I mean, this is what Einstein stated, that I'm standing on shoulders of giants who had worked so many things so that he could go ahead. And this is why we share. And in today's modern scientific research and so on, we begin to share through publications. And publications, the things have changed. Charak wrote his own book in his own way. But now, while we write books, more often it comes via publication journals, which are much widely read and much widely available. I'll come to that part later on. But then, let's see, where does come ethics in this? Science research, my own curiosity, my own sharing with others. So what is ethics? And very often there's a confusion that ethics, I mean, science is science pure. There's nothing called philosophy in it, which is wrong. After all, each one gets a doctorate in philosophy. PhD is nothing but doctorate in philosophy, not doctorate in science. That's a much later stage. Basically, it's a philosophy, way of thinking. But then ethics, we often confuse with religion, which should not be done. Ethics is ethics, basic human behavior. And actually, I think I would suggest, if some of you have not read, there's a wonderful book by Dalai Lama, a very recent book, Beyond Religion. Please look at it. It's a remarkable small book, Beyond Religion, which talks about what is ethics in general and how we should be ethical. And as scientists, we need to pursue and follow the same thing. So ethics is nothing but good behavior. As you expect others to behave with you, you behave with others. That's what basically ethics would mean. That if you don't want someone else to insult you, you don't insult others or harm others or do something. But in science, it becomes more important, or any research, not just science, but any other research, because what we discovered, what we get to know, we share with others. And if in that sharing, we have not been ethical, the consequences are cascading. Because others will build upon what we did, and if we did that wrongly, or we communicated that wrongly, or something was misrepresented, others will discover much later on, after having spent a lot of time, to rediscover that that the first person was wrong. And that's where it becomes a problem, because then instead of getting credit, you get bricks, which we don't want. So, because when we publish, we share, not only just for sake of sharing, but also because of our own recognition. Because whatever we publish today, we publish with our name. That means we own that publication, we own that information. And therefore, if that turns out to be wrong, then what we own is wrong, and our prestige goes wrong. And that's where it becomes important. Now, the next question that we can consider is, how do we plan a scientific study? What basis we plan a scientific study? The planning of a scientific study or any research study has to come out of curiosity, innate curiosity. I mean, but that innate curiosity, I may be curious about so many things, but I cannot study them in detail myself because I don't have competence to do that. I don't have the background knowledge for that. For example, today I may say, okay, I'm worried about universe, physics of it, and I should know about it, but I can't do it because I don't have that basic background in physics and cosmology and so on and so forth. So that somebody else has to do, and I have to read it. But where I have my own expertise, I can get into that, and that expertise is what builds up during our education. School education, college education, university education, your own experience, what you read sometimes in your subject, you become curious about it. You hear somebody's lecture in your field and questions arise. And that's where the research begins. So it must, the first important thing to take up research is curiosity. And this is where I must admit many of us go wrong. We don't ask our curiosity questions. Many of us as supervisors do not let students to ask their own questions. We have our own agenda. I want to work on this, and therefore student must work on this. Yes, I mean, this is a mutual relationship. I mean, somebody can't come and say, okay, I want to work on this, let me work. I don't have expertise. I can't guide that. So the choice of topic has to be by mutual understanding, capability, and realize. I mean, very often I would, as a supervisor, I've been free to learn with students. One of my students I share said he will work on something which I had only heard the term. But I read it, I got curious, I said, all right, you can work on it provided you and we learn it together. Okay, I mean, so each one was guide of us, of each other. And it worked, so that's one thing. But the important point is that both parties, teacher and the student, must be mutually interested, mutually compatible, and mutually respecting. I would imagine, unfortunately, most places don't allow this, but I think that's where ethically wrong. A student should be able to question the teacher also. That, I mean, for example, as supervisor or guide, I say, okay, do this, and student should be able to tell me, I don't agree, or I don't think this is the way I can go this way. And that mutual discussion, because science is a discourse. It's a not one-way traffic. Any research is not one-way traffic. It has to be through communication, through understanding. So that is one part of ethics that we must practice. How do we select and how do we go about doing our work? And then, of course, during the work, I'm sure there will be other discussions. There are lots of ethical requirements involved. Ethics, of course, there's one legality part of ethics. For example, if you are dealing with human subject, you're dealing with drugs, you're dealing with some animals, you're dealing with some plants, something, you're dealing with some radioactive material. There are legal requirements. And that the committee, there are appropriate institutional and national committees which are to look at it, which are all called ethical committees in ways, because the whole idea that what you do should not have bad effect on fellow beings, human beings, on environment, on animals, or whatever it is. So that is one part that has to be taken care. But more important from the ethics point of view, from what we call scientific ethics point of view, is how you do your work. How do you collect your data? How do you analyze your data? And each discipline has its own certain rules, certain conventions. But a basic ethic point of view is you have to be honest. What you are observing, what you are recording, what you are seeing, or collecting a data, don't think that when you had a curiosity, your mind gave you an hypothesis based on your understanding, based on current knowledge that this should be like this. One should not expect or accept, both ways, expect and accept results only that agree with your hypothesis. Philosophy of science says we analyze something not to prove my hypothesis, but to see if it can be proven wrong. And that's what is called as falsification. The science progresses by falsification. We want to see whether what I predict based on my understanding, based on my questions and hypothesis, can it be proven wrong or can it be proven right? If it is not proven wrong, then we accept it. Till it is proven wrong, it is acceptable. That doesn't become automatically that because I couldn't prove it wrong, therefore it's always right. It looks to be right. So science, even we say there are hypotheses, there are theories, and there are laws. But even laws are not inviolate. Newton's laws, Einstein came and Newton's laws were a problem. So every physics starts with Newton's laws, but we know that when you talk of relativity and so on, we still call them laws, but then they are not absolute 100% true laws. And so this is what we must understand, that what we come out with our explanations are kind of ephemeral, a short time till somebody else comes and proves or modifies them wrong. So and that's where we must not start with presumptions and expect results. If results don't agree with your expectations, don't throw the result. Throw your expectation. Throw the hypothesis out and start with new hypothesis and see. And this is an important point. And to do, because of this, very often falsification in data starts. You have an outlier. If you are doing some quantitative measurement, you expect a distribution. There is something which is going way beyond. You throw it out. Okay, they must be wrong. But sometimes maybe that outlier was the one which is a real excitement point. So analyze it. Why did it went wrong? That's why we do repetitions, multiple sampling, and so on and so forth, so that we find out. But then anything which is beyond your expectation, beyond the normal expectation, should not be just ignored that, okay, something happened. If something did happen, there must be a reason for it. And we need to look, why did that happen? And maybe in that process, we can make a fundamental discovery, something very important. Because, mind it, when we say this was a great research, had a great impact, if our result only say, okay, I also agree with this interpretation given, we have not made any advance. We have simply kind of supported something. Only when your results say, I don't agree with what is known, you have made a real advance. And which is very difficult because most of us are not bold enough to say, okay, I don't agree with an established theory. But believe me, only when you do that, okay, you don't have to go out and say, okay, I don't believe it, and therefore you become great. But you must have good reasons to say with confidence that this is what it should be a different way. And that's where the ethics will give you the confidence that, yes, you can claim it because you have done the experiments or analysis as expected in a rightful manner, collected the data, interpreted them logically, and looked at other things, and therefore you don't agree. I know most journals will not publish this, especially big journals. They will not publish something that, especially coming from our side of the world, that, okay, from India, nobody can come out with such great ideas. This is partly, I think, I will say, wrong ethics on part of Indians, that we don't have confidence on ourselves. And that's why we look forward to Western journals. I'll come back with the journal part briefly if time permits, that why we need to worry about our own journals when it comes to publications. But then be sure that if you say that you don't agree, you have good reasons not to agree and be forceful about it. But that requires that everything has been done, collected, properly maintained, properly recorded, properly analyzed, and then you look at the literature and then say, okay, this is how it should be. One can argue how others were wrong. Well, We keep on learning new things, and even something that I thought 5 years ago was correct, today I may say it was not correct, because our learning process, our experience, our teaching can keep on modifying. So don't be afraid of coming out with new ideas, but don't be over-enthusiastic only to come out with new ideas when doesn't exist. Now comes to when we talk about publication. The publications, I think that's the main theme where we have gone into serious crisis. Crisis of two kinds. One, the number of researchers that are there in the globe now is enormously high compared to the number of journals which are available for publications, which can be accessed by everyone. And therefore, there is a need for new journals, and new journals keep on coming. This is one part, that we need more and more journals to come up. And so obviously there's an industry that is awaiting to be utilized. The other thing that has happened in the last 3-4 decades is, earlier, see, if you look at the history of journals, how did journals start historically? 200, 300 years ago. Otherwise, every who discovered will write one's own book. Good old days, they were handwritten. In India, they were mostly oral transmission. But then when public and printing process started, people started writing their books and publishing them, and whoever could read them. But then and soon they formed societies, academies and societies. Every country, every city had an academy or a society where people will come and discuss. And so then they will publish their own journal as proceedings mostly. That at this meeting, this proceeding, these lectures were discussed, discovered, and those articles will often publish the main text, plus also questions and discussions that happen. So that only if they were accepted, then they become available to the others, and so on and so forth. But as numbers increase, there are more and more societies, more and more things, and with more commercialization, regular publishers came into business. And more journals were published by commercial agencies. And this brought in the motive of profit. Because commercial agencies will not publish, a scientific academy at the university institution will publish a journal more for philanthropy rather than profit making. But a commercial journal will publish something for profit making. And how do they make more and more profit? By having more journals, by having more articles coming in, by being more restrictive so that people will begin to have confidence in a given journal. And around 70s, Eugene Garfield gave an idea of impact factor. That impact factor, according to Eugene Garfield, was essentially for the help of librarians. That in which journals articles are more often cited, that means read by people, and therefore libraries should subscribe to that journal. But commercial houses turned that into an individual metrics, that every individual's importance and contribution could be measured by that number, which was completely wrong. But somehow, all of us scientists who think we are rational thinkers got brainwashed in that idea. And we begin to count a person, impact factor 5.4 or 5.3, or even 5.39 is less than 5.4. We got into that kind of arithmetic, which is completely wrong. But that was one reason why the publication business became a little murky. But more serious blow was every country, and more serious in a country like India, ours, we began to quantify every research by numbers. And therefore, supposedly to improve quality of PhD research, to improve the quality of research done by any individual in a college or university, University Grants Commission came up with an idea that there must be certain minimum numbers. A PhD is not worth if it has not been able to produce 1 or 2 research publications. I don't know whether it's 1 or 2, maybe 2 at one point now. So, which is true in a way, that if you have spent 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, and nothing comes out of it, what that really worth? And so, logically, it's very correct. But then, once you are in a mediocre level, we Indians are great in looking at things from the wrong side. We immediately find out a loophole. And so, we will publish 2 papers, irrespective where, what. It's just 2. Number 2 is important. So when you submit your thesis, the clerk will ask, have you 2 papers? Yes, I have 2 papers, which could be plain paper. But you have 2 papers. I mean, a plain paper would be better than what we often publish. And so we go through. Similar for getting a job, assistant professor, now we call it, you must have 4 papers. Publish it anywhere. And so then, this, what we call as predatory journals or bogus journals, came into being because they were, an opportunity was waiting for them to publish something. But then, why this opportunity there? Not just publishing, because prior to that, commercial houses and scientific community agreed on one thing more. And I don't know whether many young people may not know this. Many journals publish everything free, no cost. But many journals had charges, page charges, color image charges. These were standard charges for many. You buy reprints, you have to pay for reprints. In good old days when we didn't have internet, we had to have hard copy reprints, and journals will give, most journals will give 50 copies free or 100 copies free, and if you needed more, because there was no, that was the only way we could share with the rest of the world, that we get reprints and send them by post to the other community. So there are page charges, color charges, but many journals had free. Then came, because as the number of journals had kept on increasing and the library budgets kept on decreasing, researchers were in a problem, how do we read a journal? Because library doesn't get hard copy and we have no access. And so then with internet coming in, it became online possibility, that people could read it online, so you don't need to now exchange hard copies. But with online copies, somebody has to maintain it. Library budget is decreasing, so the commercial houses, will they make profit? So then they started claiming online subscription or per reading open access charges. That every time you read a paper on that website, you pay $34 or $35 or some euros, certain amount, to be able to read it once. And then many journals started which are only online. There are no hard copy. So the only way to read them is you read them online. So either library subscribes, online subscription, or individual can read it. So they started making open access charges. That all right, I'll publish, it will be available to anyone. So now instead of reader pays model, we became author pays model. Author works hard, but then has to pay for getting it known. And you see, some of the older people may remember this. In 1990s, a paper published in PNAS, Proceeding National Academy of Science, or American journal, many American journals, will carry a footnote. This paper must be treated as advertisement because charges have been paid for its publication. So I mean, this was a statutory line in US, because US Congress said, if you want to publish and you pay for something, it's advertisement. So that line, now that has gone because now we have accepted open access charges. And because many of these big publishers agreed with major funding agencies in US like NIH and so on, that NIH funded projects will be paid for open access automatically. So NIH will pay in bulk certain amount to every publisher so that any paper that comes out will be automatically open access. So open access charge payment became a practice for scientists. And this is what the predatory journals exploited immediately. You are an author, you want to have 2 papers. Where do you publish? You pay 500 rupees, 5,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees, depending upon how much pocket you have, how big pocket you have, and they'll bargain and publish something. And publish, you have an interview 2 days later, they'll publish tomorrow. I mean, they guaranteed publication, 24 hours, 7 days, and so on. And in a country like ours, we had enormous takers of this facility. And therefore, unfortunately, India became one of the toppers in publication in predatory journals. Maximum number of journals, maximum number of authors publishing them because of this not misconceived policy, but misconceived implementation of it, and also misconceived partly because UGC should have thought that when you are making mandatory research, you must provide facilities for that in colleges and universities also. Most universities today, colleges today, don't have facility even for regular practicals. Forget about research. But you still make it mandatory that a college teacher has to teach 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week where there's only 2 teachers for the whole subject, and still they must produce 4 papers. So they only produce, they not write. And this is where things gone wrong. And this is an important point that we must consider, we must realize. And I'm happy today that, yes, there has been a strong movement about it. UGC kept on making a mess. I don't want to get into that. It still keeps on making a mess of that, publishing a list, withdrawing it, republishing it, re-withdrawing it, and whatever it is. My view with UGC has been, don't be a body to regulate number of publications. Be only an advisory. Not this journal or that journal and so on and so forth. It's for the individual scientific community which has to learn. And ethics on part of those who sit on this side of the table, that means people who sit on judgment committees, and ethics is don't go by just arithmetic or metrics. Go by quality. And I should tell you, maybe you all can now look at it. Indian National Science Academy has come out with a policy document on assessment of scientific contribution by individuals and by institutions. And we hope that this will become a national policy. We are trying, and the idea there is that it's a quality that is to be counted, not quantity. Not 4 papers versus 5 papers or 10 papers versus 100 papers. Because we become double standard. Many Nobel laureates whom we credit so much, they may not have had 10 papers in the whole of their career. We may have 1,000 papers and still nowhere near any Nobel Prize or something. C.V. Raman got his Nobel Prize for just 1 paper. And that study was done without any supervisor, without any research funding. Remember this. I think each of you should read C.V. Raman's life. How did he got that Nobel Prize? Sitting on a ship deck, he looks at something, becomes curious, comes back, spends 6 years of hard work, sends a small note to Nature, and that note is less than 1 page of Nature. Publishes full details in an Indian journal and gets Nobel. How many of us can do that? And why we can't do that? Because we are not asking that kind of questions. We are not having that kind of passion, that kind of intelligence and appreciation, and therefore we get lost. So, and this brings me to one point, again, going back with the example of C.V. Raman. His full paper was published in Indian journal, not in Nature. And what we have done, Indian journal or foreign journal, national or international journal, we began distinguishing. Implicit in this distinction is, anything published in Indian journal is inferior. Why? Why should we do that classification? I know many institute directors or many research laboratory directors, if you publish in Current Science, throw it. Why? I ask the editors of Current Science that if you're sitting on the judgment and somebody comes with a paper in Current Science and you throw it out, why are you in the editorial board of the Current Science? Why didn't you resign from there? That's a useless journal, why should I be associated? And I think we need to get over this philosophy that publishing in Indian journals is bad. As an associate person associated with journals in India, I know how difficult for the editor is to bring out good quality papers. Editor cannot manufacture quality papers. Yes, it's only the authors who can provide good quality papers. But if we go with this distinction that publication in Indian journal is poor, we will never get good manuscripts. And I appeal to the young community that do publish. Don't be afraid that you argue with this selection, that look at the quality of paper rather than the quantity or what the journal name is. And I'll just stop. Maybe we can talk many more things later on because time is getting up. I have, from beginning of my career, when I was just 25 years old, I took this decision to publish 50% of my papers in Indian journals. And I maintained it. The only condition is there must be good peer review. And I can assure you, not that peer review in Indian journals is poor. Most of my papers, even today, go through 1 or 2 revisions, as often and outside as in Indian journals. So it's only our mindset that we think publication in Indian journals is bad. Yes, we should not find Indian journals as an easy scapegoat. We must be confident of our quality of our own work, quality of our implication, and then make sure that the journal that we submit are not which will publish anything for payment. No, I won't publish in any journal, be it Nature or be anything. If I have to pay for money, I will not pay. I have completely refrained from paying any money for any paper. Because I think it needs a free exchange. We are also thinking of having preprint archives. I mean, just for the young people, I can tell you, there are preprint archives where you can deposit your paper as it is. It is available for eternity. You can't withdraw it. Once you put on preprint archive, you can't withdraw it. So if you have done wrong, it's known forever. If you have claimed priority, some new ideas, it's your idea maintained on that date. Everybody can read that because they are completely free accessible. They can read that on this date, because I'm sure somebody will talk about plagiarism. Typically, we take plagiarism as text plagiarism or image plagiarism. But there's also idea plagiarism. Professor Chadda, I think he will come and he may talk about this. This idea plagiarism, that I have this idea, I wanted to publish it, reviewer didn't accept it, and then somebody else comes with that same idea. But if you put it on preprint archive, you can always say, we had put this idea first. And so that's where it is. I think I'll stop here, and if there's time for questions or anything, or otherwise we can talk later. Thank you.